Hebrews. This is Prophets of Awakening. This is our advanced Bible class on the Tuesday night, the 15th of February, 2022. I'll be dealing with later on in the lesson. The topic will be Joshua, the son of Nun. So I'll be going into that. Asking everybody to like, share, subscribe to Prophets of Awakening channel, and hit the notification button, please. This is a non-Messianic channel. We deal with the Tanakh and the Torah. The Tanakh is the Old Testament, so-called Book of Remembrance, and the Torah is the first 5 books that was given to Moses on Mount Sinai by the Lord of Hosts. And that situation was the angel gave Moses the information from creation up until Mount Sinai. Moses didn't know it, so he revealed it to him, made it known to him. So I want to say shalom and welcome everyone to Prophets of Awakening channel. And say welcome to our advanced Bible class. We're going to do our moment of silence, prayer, psalms, and current events, and a little need to know information. And then we'll go into our Q&A, then go into the topic. Oh Lord, we thank you for your great mercy and your great power and wisdom, and we tarry waiting for your powerful deliverance of your people. Oh Lord, you have given us insight into the scriptures of our forefathers. You, oh Lord, has directed us, you and you alone, ruling in heaven and on earth. And we are doubtless that you will appear and that you will gather your nation from among these wicked Gentiles. Oh Lord, you spoke through your prophet Isaiah and said that you would help Abraham's seed, and that you, O Lord, whom you, O Lord, have scattered. You have repeated that promise as of this day. You said, O Lord, that you would remove the darkness from around us. Tarry not, O Lord, the latter days are here, and we are waiting and watching for you. Peace be on you. Okay. That being said, read Psalm. Okay. Okay. I'm going to read Psalms 139. It's the everlasting presence and power of Yahweh. It's a Psalm of David. O Lord, thou hast searched me and known me. Thou knowest my down sitting and mine uprising. Thou understandest my thoughts afar off. Thou compassest my path and my lying down, and art acquainted with all my ways. But there is not a word in my tongue, but know, O Lord, thou knowest it altogether. Thou hast set me behind and before, and laid thy hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It is high. I cannot obtain unto it. Whither shall I go from thy spirit, or whither shall I flee from thy presence? If I ascend up into heaven, thou art there. If I make my bed in hell, behold, thou art there. If I take the wings of the morning and dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea, even there shall thy hand lead me, and thy right hand shall hold me. If I say, surely the darkness shall cover me, even the night shall be light about me. Yea, the darkness hideth not from thee, but the night shineth as the day, and the darkness and the light are both alike to thee. For thou hast possessed my reins, thou hast covered me in my mother's womb. I will praise thee, for I am fearful and wonderfully made. Marvelous are thy works, and that my soul knoweth right well. My substance was not hid from thee when I was made in the secret and curiously wrought in the lowest parts of the earth. Thine eyes did see my substance, yet being unperfect, and in thy book All my members were written which in continuous were fashioned, when as yet there was none of them. How precious also are thy thoughts unto me, O Lord. How great is the sum of them. If I should count them, they are more in number than the sands. When I awake, I am still with thee. Surely thou wilt slay the wicked, O God. Depart from me, therefore, ye bloody men, for they speak against thee wickedly, and thine enemies take thy name in vain. Do not I hate them, O Lord, that hate thee, and I am not grieved, and I am not I grieved with those that rise up against thee. I hate them with a perfect hatred. I count them my enemies. Search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me and know my thoughts, and see if there be any wicked in me, and lead me in the way of everlasting. So that was Psalm 139. It's the everlasting presence of the power of Yahweh. Any comments? Okay.
Verse 1. O Lord, thou hast searched me and known me.
Okay.
David knew that the Lord had, personal knowledge of him. He had a
Right.
personal relationship. Yes. Yes.
Okay. Right.
Yeah. He knows everything. He knows me.
Right. It sounds what this sounds. The first thing jump out at me when you read it is the fact that it takes me back to when he said that there's not a leaf that falls on the ground that he don't know nothing about. In so many ways, it's just David is summing that up. There's some.
Yes.
Okay. So with that being said, I was gonna go to some. Anybody else got anything on that? Okay. I was gonna go to current events. Anybody got any current events? Okay. Got a couple right here.
Before tonight is a little disturbing, even borderline bizarre. A security camera has captured some unusual footage. Thousands of birds are seen falling from the sky. They're dropping dead. It happened in Mexico, and people around the world are having a hard time explaining this incident. Take a look.
What you will see next is disturbing. This is the footage from a security camera. Watch what happens next. The video is not fake. This happened in Mexico. Birds fell from the sky and dropped dead. Spooky, right? It happens in novels of Haruki Murakami.
Fish
fall from the sky. Leeches fall from the sky. It's magical realism, not reality.
So what
explains what this camera captured?
It happened on
the 7th of February.
The sidewalks
were flooded with dead birds.
People
started looking for clues.
One netizen said the birds flew through power
lines.
Another
blamed electromagnetic radiation, the so-called frequency warfare. We wish we knew what she meant. One Twitter user said the birds could have inhaled toxic gases. The birds that died were all migratory. They traveled to Mexico from Canada every year. But something like this has never happened before. One netizen seems to believe there were magnetic field issues. What kind exactly? The conspiracy theory kind. Actor Channing Tatum has given the mysterious incident a political twist. He says this is what happens when people follow a leader blindly. The local paper that first reported the incident blames pollution. What do experts say? They say what happened was murmurating. Let's look at the footage again. The birds were apparently trying to escape a predator. In that process, few hit the ground and died. Channing Tatum was right. The birds did not realize they were going to hit the ground because they were following the leader blindly. This has happened before. In 2020, for example, some 200 starlings were found dead on a road in North Wales. Post-mortem reports showed severe internal trauma. It was later concluded that the bird struck the ground while trying to escape a predator. That explains this scary footage. And it is better than believing aliens have begun flashing birds from the sky. Bureau Report, we are World is One.
Okay. Any comments? Anybody seen that video or heard anything about it?
No, I have not. But my cousin that lives in California, he sent me a video of just a swarm of birds just flying around all crazy. And this was
Right.
like last week.
Right,
I mean, it was a massive amount of them.
right. Yeah, that's happening a lot. This guy was hunting one time and a couple of months ago, and he's turkey hunting, and he came up on this tree, and all the turkeys were just going around the tree in a circle, all of them. Did something, and we recorded it. I think it's got something to do with hawks, me. It's like the same way with the fish. Schools of fish coming up, washing up on shore. Okay. Got another one here. Okay, yeah. Let me play this one right here first. This is some need to know information. I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but I'll just go ahead and play it since I'm on here. Some information on our people.
With your favorite topic, states and cities. So far, we have done worst cities for African Americans and best cities for African Americans. But what about the states? That's what we dive into in today's video. Hi, my name's Jared, and welcome to The Five. We share 5 interesting things in Black culture and society in every episode. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell so you can get notified when we release new videos. Out of the 50 states, which 5 would you guess are the worst for African Americans? Zippia.com ranked each state in 4 categories: income gap, education gap, home ownership disparity, and Black incarceration rate per 100,000. They compared the percentage differences between median white and median Black incomes. The greater the gap meant the state had a long way to go towards equality. The same thing was applied to the other categories. As always, let us know if you agree or disagree in the comments. Now let's get to the list, starting from number 5 and going down to the worst state in America for Blacks. Number 5, Minnesota. The state of Minnesota has the biggest home ownership gaps out of all the states for white and Black homeowners. This is no surprise at all for a Midwestern state, as the Midwest is notorious for its redlining history. According to the website Minnesota Compass, only 24% of Black households in the state own their own homes, compared with 77% of white Minnesota households. In Minneapolis, the Black home ownership rate is the lowest of any metro area in the country. The racial income gap is 36% in Minnesota, while the education gap sits at 15.5. The Black incarceration rate, however, is the lowest out of all the other states on this list at 1,219 per 100,000. Minnesota is not alone in being one of the worst states for African Americans in the Midwest. According to a study by a University of Iowa historian, Midwestern cities and states in general are among the worst places for Black people to live in. Number 4, Connecticut. This East Coast state made it on the worst list for its high home ownership and high income gap. Connecticut is known for being a wealthy state that's home to some of the nation's most financially well-off population. but this prosperity is largely enjoyed by white residents. While Connecticut has one of the lowest poverty rates for white residents at 6%, over 20% of the black population live in poverty. According to a report by 24/7 Wall Street, there is an almost $37,000 gap between the median annual income of black and white households. In the report, 24/7 Wall Street states racial segregation is especially pronounced in Connecticut. Not only are high affluent, predominantly white neighborhoods more common in Connecticut than across the nation, but unlike many other areas, these communities often border extremely poor, predominantly non-white neighborhoods. The black incarceration rate in Connecticut sits at 1,392 per 100,000. Number 3, South Dakota. South Dakota is similar to Connecticut in its income and home ownership gap, but its black incarceration rate is slightly higher at 1,493 per 100,000. South Dakota doesn't often show up on any list pertaining to the black population, since African Americans make up only 2% of the population. The city of Sioux Falls has the largest black population in South Dakota. The education gap is particularly high in this state, similar to Connecticut. Black South Dakota residents are 18% less likely to receive a bachelor's degree. In an equality ranking released by the U.S. News and World Report that looks at how residents of various states perform in categories of employment, educational achievement, and income, South Dakota came in at number 15. At number 2, we have Iowa. Another Midwestern state makes up the list as the second worst state for African Americans. The home ownership gap between black and white residents is the second highest at 50%. Surprisingly, it has the lowest education gap out of all states on the list at 11.9%. The racial income gap is at 35%, which is on par with Minnesota. 24/7 ranked Iowa as the fourth worst state for African Americans based on home ownership and unemployment rates. The state's black population earns a median household income of less than $30,000 annually, which is lower than the nationwide black median household income. In 2018, 24/7 Wall Street named the Waterloo-Cedar Falls area as the worst place for African Americans in the U.S. The wage gap in the area is even wider at 46%. The black incarceration rate for the whole state is at 2,349 per 100,000. And at the number one spot, the worst state in America for black people, according to Zippia, is Wisconsin. There is no surprise here, as cities in Wisconsin often make the worst list for African Americans. And one of the main reasons for Wisconsin to land on the number one spot is the high incarceration rate of African Americans, which sits at 2,542 per 100,000. Black imprisonment is more than 10 times that of white imprisonment in the state. The home ownership gap is at 48%. Wallet Hub also named Wisconsin as the worst state for racial equality in employment and wealth in 2020.
Okay. Is anybody surprised by any of them states?
Not at all.
Maybe some. That's crazy. We would think, it'd be a whole lot different after, 200 years? But it ain't. It's crazy. Okay. One more, and then I'm going to go to that Q&A.
The calamities we witnessed over the past few years seem like supernatural events described in passages taken straight out of the Bible. The global health crisis, devastating wildfires, droughts, pests, floods, hurricanes, earthquakes, extreme weather, blackouts, political conflicts, and decaying societies. The entire world has been turned upside down, and a lot of people started preparing for potential catastrophes, lockdowns, shortages, and accidents. Stay-at-home orders issued overnight left many fearing that they could suddenly get stuck at home for an unknown period of time without enough supplies to get by. That's why, once they were allowed to get out and go shopping again, they started to buy extra items and stock them so they could be ready in case they had to face an extreme situation. Previously referred to as survivalists, wanted to live off the grid. Now, those who decide to arrange their lives for any potential disaster are called preppers, and this group is much bigger than we can imagine. They were commonly portrayed as isolated individuals and loners, but in actuality, they can be everyday folks. Now there's a lot to discuss today, so don't forget to leave a thumbs up in this video and subscribe. The shortages and supply chain disruptions we had to face over the past years led many people to realize that the system is much more vulnerable than it appears. And from that point on, consumer psychology radically changed. Most Americans have never dealt with such extensive shortages and sharp price hikes in their entire lives. They weren't used to buying in bulk because they assumed goods would always be available at the stores. Needless to say, those times are long gone. Now, prepping is becoming increasingly more common as supply chain problems continue to compound and food inflation spins out of control. The average American had to confront a harsh reality: be prepared or be hungry. The health crisis was definitely a wake-up call for tens of millions of consumers who finally could see with their own eyes that neither the government nor big corporations would come to their rescue and help them when things start to fall apart. Most of our so-called leaders were nowhere to be found at the peak of the outbreak in 2020, when people started to panic buy food, wipe out supermarket shelves at record speed, and fight over toilet paper in a frenzy unlike anything we've ever seen. An article just published by the Wall Street Journal shared the experiences of several consumers who've revealed that their purchasing habits have changed. Bulk buying is expected to stick as people supply remains uncertain and inflation rears up. Retailers and producers are shifting operations as a result, the report says. Alexis Abel, a 41-year-old mother of 5, now buys in bulk out of fear of shortages and supply chain disruptions. I don't want to be in a position again where I can't get something, Abel said. The household spends about 25% more a week on food and staples compared to a couple of years ago. The stimulus money is gone, but we've gotten used to having more on hand and I'm cooking more at home, so I expect this to continue, she added. Many Americans expanded their pantry over the past 2 years. They bought freezers and started to stockpile non-perishables. Although the Wall Street Journal and most of the media try to generalize the prepper movement and diminish its importance by calling it bulk shopping or hoarding, that's not what preparedness is all about. Some might be tempted to say that people are hoarding food, but hoarding is, in fact, a psychological disorder in which there's an unwillingness to discard possessions, leading to a massive accumulation of items. In some cases, that can make someone's living space completely unusable. What's happening right now is not the emergence of a widespread hoarding disorder amongst consumers. People are just trying to look after themselves and take care of their families at such uncertain times. If it's out of anxiety and fear that when I need this, I won't be able to get it, it's a valid fear, explains Laura Pastor Shames, a clinical social worker in Miami.
Okay. Any comments so far? He's talking about how people hoarding their food now. You know, they just like, you hear a lot of people saying they can tell that something's getting ready to happen. You know, They go on what they conscience is telling them, and so they are stocking up food, which is making us grocery stores shelves empty. You get some? Play a little more.
Live in the wild to become a prepper. Prepping is about not allowing yourself to be vulnerable to external interruptions. Megan Crozier, Sam's chief merchant, revealed that most new Sam's Club memberships in the third quarter of 2021 had been millennial households. With our current dependence on things from the electric grid to the internet, things that people have no control over, there is a feeling that a collapse scenario can easily emerge, and that the end is coming, and that it's all out of an individual's control. Noted Kathy Gutierrez, author of The End That Does, Science and Millennial Accomplishment. Another factor pushing younger consumers into prepping is the relentless rise in food prices and the hardest inflation in 4 decades. Americans are getting increasingly frustrated with skyrocketing prices and new price increases every week. Global food prices have soared over 30% over the past year and are set to reach a record high this spring. In short, more people are stocking up on food because the items they want could either be out of stock or 20% more expensive. John Ramy, who started the blog The Prepared in 2018, says that when we talk about the modern prepping movement, we're not talking about a man moving to the mountains in a bunker. The old stereotype was that it was old men who went off the grid. Not now. It's young, old, 50-50, men and women. It's everyone. Our largest age group is between 25 to 35. More and more, it's normal people. Prepping is just being a mature adult, he emphasizes.
Okay. You comments? Is it prepping insane, or you think it's a good thing?
I think it's a good thing to kind of be on, ahead of the game,
Right.
some, and, to start, growing your own also.
Right.
Um, I don't know if you guys have noticed it, but how expensive beef is now. I mean, it seems like, chicken, pork, and everything else is pretty much the prices are staying the same, but the beef prices are, ridiculous.
Right. It's almost as if they're trying to do away with the beef, or make you not,
Right,
yeah, make you buy what they call it non-kosher food, because you got so many uh, Hebrews, African Americans that's waking up to, their diet, especially that them waking up to who they are, and they knowing that it's foods that we're not supposed to eat or even come near close to.
right. And the fruits and vegetables are just not fresh. They don't look right.
Like, oh yeah, yeah, do you wise to start trying to do something around your house. You know, there ain't nothing but collards and turnips or whatever, tomatoes. Have something. Okay. So with that being said, we're gonna go into the Q&A. Anybody got any comments or questions about anything from last week, the Sabbath class, or whatever, something they saw on the YouTube, or you got any comments about something or question they want to raise? Okay, yeah. So what we're gonna do is go. If nobody have any questions, we're gonna go into to the lesson. What I'm doing, what I'm reading from is uh, Jasher 88, 89, and 90. It's the story of what happened after Moses was taken on Mount Nebo and passed away, and then Joshua took over. And so, just for a little side note for the people that don't know it is the lie that was told that the Lord of hosts is gonna raise up prophet likened unto Moses, and they reference that prophecy to Jesus Christ, but it's actually Joshua. Joshua was that prophet he raised up because Moses passed away and was not, and then there was a leadership gap. The Israelites couldn't move forward until somebody was took Moses' place, and we know that Moses schooled Joshua and tutored Joshua. So Joshua was like Joshua was the one likened unto Moses. Joshua was the one that prophecy was talking about that was raised up among the Israelites. Joshua, not Jesus Christ. That's a fluke. Okay, so with that being said, I'm gonna go into the lesson. Start reading. I'm in Joshua 88. Let me get it. Okay. Joshua 88 says, chapter 88, and it was after the death of Moses that the Lord said to Joshua the son of Nun, saying, rise up and pass the Jordan to the land which I have given to the children of Israel, and thou shalt make the children of Israel inherit the land. Every place upon the soles of your feet shall your feet tread shall belong to you. From the wilderness of Lebanon unto the great city, great river, Pirath shall be your boundary. No man shall stand up against thee all the days of thy life. As I was with Moses, so will I be with thee. Only be strong and of good courage to observe all the law which Moses commanded thee. Turn not from the way either to the right or to the left, in order that thou mayest prosper in all that thou doest. So let's look at that right quick, because it's, like I said, we've been lied to so much, and we got so much stuff in our head that just ain't right. So it says right here, the prophecy was he's gonna raise up one like unto Moses. So he says right here in verse 1. And it was after the death of Moses that the Lord said to Joshua, son of Nun, saying, rise up, pass through the Jordan to the land which I have given to the children of Israel, that thou shalt make the children of Israel inherit it. Then down here in verse 4 it says, 4, no man shall stand up against thee. Talking to Joshua. No man shall stand up against thee all the days of thy life. As I was with Moses, this is like unto Moses. As I was with Moses, so will I be with thee. Only be strong and of good courage to observe all the law which Moses commanded thee. They're going to answer to your prophecy right there. Prophecy being fulfilled. Okay? 6. And the officers of the children of Israel did so, and they commanded the people, and they did all that Joshua had commanded. And Joshua sent 2 men to spy out the land of Jericho. And when the men went and spied out Jericho, at the end of 7 days they came to Joshua in the camp and said to him, the Lord has delivered the whole land into our hands, and the inhabitants thereof are melted with fear before us because of us. And it came to pass after that Joshua rose up in the morning, and all Israel with him, and they journeyed from Sittim. And Joshua and all Israel with him passed the Jordan. And Joshua was 82 years old when he passed the Jordan with Israel. And the people went up from Jordan on the 10th day of the first month, and they encamped in Gilead at the eastern corner of Jericho. And the children of Israel kept the Passover in Gilgal, in the plains of Jericho on the 14th day of the month, as it is written in the laws of Moses. And manna ceased at that time on the morrow of the Passover, and there was no more manna for the children of Israel, and they ate of the produce of the land of Canaan. So what he's talking about right here is that for 40 years, like while they was wandering, he was feeding them with manna, with angel food from heaven. And then the day they crossed the Jordan, he cut that off. Okay, so verse 13, and Joshua was entirely closed against the children of Israel. No one came out or went in. And it was in the second month, on the first day of the month, that the Lord said to Joshua, rise up, behold, I have given Jericho into thy hands, with all the people thereof, and all your fighting men shall go round the city once each day. Thou shalt do, thus shall ye do for 6 days. And the priest shall blow upon the trumpet, and when ye shall hear the sound of the trumpet, all the people shall give a great shout, shouting that the walls of the city shall fall down, and all the people shall go up, every man against his opponent. And Joshua did so according to all the Lord had commanded him. And the seventh day they went around the city 7 times, and the priests blew the trumpets. And at the seventh round, Joshua said to the people, shout, for the Lord has delivered the whole city into your hand. Only the city and all it contains shall be accursed to the Lord, and keep yourselves from the accursed thing, lest you make the camp of Israel accursed and trouble it. But all the silver and the gold, the brass, the iron shall be consecrated to the Lord. They shall come into the treasury of the Lord. And the people blew upon the trumpet and made a great shouting, and the walls of Jericho fell down, and all the people went up, every man straight before him. And they took the city and utterly destroyed all that was in it, both man and woman, young and old, ox and sheep and ass, with the edge of the sword. And they burned the whole city with fire. Only the vessels of silver and gold and brass and iron they put into the treasury of the Lord. And Joshua swore at that time, saying, cursed be the man who builds Jericho. He shall lay the foundation thereof in his firstborn, and his youngest shall he set up the gates thereof. And Achan and Carmi, the sons of Zidah, the sons of Zerah, sons of Judah, dealt treacherously in the accursed thing. And he took one of the accursed things and hid it in his tent. And the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel. And it was after this, when the children of Israel had returned from burning Jericho, Joshua set men to spy out also Ai and to fight against it. And the men went up and spied out Ai, and they returned and said, let not all the people go up with thee to Ai, only let about 3,000 men go up and smite the city for the men thereof of a few. And Joshua did so, and there went up with him the children of Israel, about 3,000 men, and they fought against the men of Ai. And the battle was severe against Israel. And the men of Ai smote 36 men of Israel, and the children of Israel fled from before them, the men of Ai. And Joshua saw this thing. He tore his garment and fell upon his face to the ground before the Lord, he with the elders of Israel, and they put a dust upon their heads. And Joshua said, why, O Lord, did thou bring this people over the Jordan? Why shall I say after the Israelites have turned their backs against their enemies? Now therefore all the Canaanites, the inhabitants of the land, will hear this thing and surround us and cut off our name. And the Lord said to Joshua, why didst thou fall upon thy face? Rise, get thee up, for the Israelites have sinned and taken of the accursed thing, and I will no more be with them unless I destroy the accursed thing from amongst them. And Joshua rose up and assembled the people and brought the Urim by the order of the Lord, and the tribe of Judah was taken, and Achan, son of Nenah, was taken. And Joshua and Achan, tell me, my son. And Joshua said to Achan, tell me, my son, what hast thou done? And Achan said, I saw amongst the spoils of the goodly garments of Shinar and 200 shekels of silver, and a wage wedge of gold of 50 shekels weight, and I covered them and took them, and behold, they are hid in the earth in the midst of the tent. And Joshua sent men who went and took them from the tent of Achan, and they brought them to Joshua. Joshua took Achan and these utensils, and his sons and his daughters, and all belonging to him, and they brought him into the valley of Achor. And Joshua burned them there with fire. And all the Israelites stoned Achan with stones, and they raised over him a heap of stones. Therefore did he call that place the valley of Achor, so that the Lord's anger was appeased. And Joshua afterwards came to the city and fought against it. The Lord said to Joshua, fear not, neither be thou dismayed. Behold, I have given into thy hands Ai, a king and a people, and thou shalt do unto them as thou didst to Jericho and her kings. Only the spoil thereof and the cattle thereof shall you take for a prey for yourselves. Lay an ambush for the city behind it. So Joshua did according to the word of the Lord, and he chose from among the sons of war 30,000 valiant men, and he sent them, and they laid in ambush for the city. And he commanded them, saying, when ye shall see us, we will flee before them with cunning, and they will pursue us. And ye shall then rise up of the ambush and take the city, and they did so. Joshua fought, and the men of the city went out toward Israel, not knowing that they were lying in ambush for them behind the city. And Joshua and all the Israelites fiends together, uh, worried out before them, and they fled by the way of the wilderness with cunning. And the men of Ai gathered all the people who were in the city to pursue the Israelites. And they went out and were drawn away from the city, not one remained, and they left the city open and pursued the Israelites. And those who were lying in ambush rose up out of their places and hastened to come to the city and took it and set it on fire. And the men of Ai turned back, and behold, the smoke of the city ascended to the skies, and they had no means of retreating either one way or the other. And all the men of Ai were in the midst of Israel, some on this side and some on that side, and they smote them so that not one man remained. And the children of Israel took Melosh, king of Ai, alive, and they brought him to Joshua, and Joshua hanged him on a tree, and he died. And the children of Israel returned to the city after having burned it, and they smote all those that were smote all those that were in it with the edge of the sword. And the number of those that fallen of the men of Ai, both men and women, were 12,000. On the cattle and the spoils of the city they took to themselves according to the word of the Lord to Joshua. And all the kings on this side of the Jordan, all the kings of Canaan heard the evil which the children of Israel had done unto Jericho and Ai, and they gathered themselves together to fight against Israel. Only the inhabitants of Gibeon were greatly afraid of fighting against the Israelites lest they should perish. So they acted cunningly, and they came to Joshua and to all Israel and said unto them, we come from a distant land, now therefore make a covenant with us. And the inhabitants of Gibeon overreached the children of Israel, and the children of Israel made a covenant with them, and they made peace with them. And the princes of the congregation swore unto them, but afterward the children of Israel knew that they were neighbors to them and were dwelling amongst them. But the children of Israel slew them, okay, slew them not, for they had sworn to them by the Lord that they became hewers of wood and drawers of water. And Joshua said to them, why did thou deceive me to do this thing, to us? And they answered him, saying, because it was told to thy servants all that you had done to all the kings of the Amorites, and we were greatly afraid of our lives, and we did nothing. And Joshua appointed them on that day to shoot wood and draw water, and divided them for the slaves to all the tribes of Israel. And when Adonizedek, king of Jerusalem, heard all that the children of Israel had done to Jericho or to Ai, he sent Hoham, king of Abram, and Panan, and Jeremy, and Jaffa, king of language, and Deborah, king of Eglon, whatever that word is saying, come up and to meet and help us, that we may smite the children of Israel, and to come up to us and help me, that we may smite the children of Israel and inhabit the Gibeon, who had made peace with the children of Israel. And they gathered themselves together, and the 5 kings of the Amorites went up with all their camps, the mighty people, numerous as the sands of the seashore. And all these kings came and encamped before Gibeon, and they began to fight against the inhabitants of Gibeon. And all the men of Gibeon sent to Joshua, saying, come, go quickly to us and help us, for all the kings of the Amorites have gathered together to fight against us. And Joshua and all the fighting people went up to Gilgal, and Joshua came suddenly to them and smote these 5 kings with great slaughter. Okay, and the Lord confounded them before the children of Israel, who smote them with a terrifying slaughter at Gibeon, and pursued them along the way that goes to the Beth Horon or Megiddo, and they fled from before the children of Israel. And while they were fleeing, the Lord sent upon them a hailstone from heaven, and more of them died by hailstone than slaughter of the children of Israel. And the children of Israel pursued them, and they still smote them in the road, going on to smiting them. And when they were smiting, the day was declining toward evening, and Joshua said in the sight of all the people, the sun, stand thou still unto Gibeon, and thy moon in the valley of Ajalon, until the nations shall have revenged itself upon their enemies. And the Lord hearkened to the voice of Joshua, and the sun stood still in the midst of the heavens, and it stood still 36 moments. And the moon also stood still and hastened not to go down the whole day. And after there was there was no day like that before it or after it, that the Lord hearkened to the voice of a man, or the Lord fought for Israel. Okay. Anybody got any comments so far? Want to say heard anything ring a bell? Got one more chapter. Okay. Then spoke Joshua this song on the day that the Lord had given the Amorites into the hands of Joshua and the children of Israel, and he said in the midst of them, and he said in the sight of all Israel, thou hast done mighty things, O Lord, thou hast performed great deeds. Who is likened unto thee? And my lips shall sing to thy name. So I got another witness right here about, I was telling you about Joshua being that prophet that was raised up like unto Moses, 89:1. Then spoke Joshua this song, right? If you go to Deuteronomy chapter 32, Moses got a song. Moses prophesied to him, but he prophesied to him in a song. Joshua doing the same thing right here, like unto Moses. Then spoke Joshua this song on the day that the Lord had given the Amorites into the hands of Joshua and the children of Israel, and he said in the sight of all Israel. So the same Moses had a song, and he had a song. Joshua got a song. Okay. To thee, Lord, we confide, and we said, thou art our God, and thou was, chapter 5, verse 5 of Joshua 89. Thou shalt sing and praise thy power. To thee, O Lord, we confide, and we said, thou art our God, and thou was our shelter and strong tower against our enemies. To thee we cried and were not ashamed. In, in thee we trusted and were delivered when we cried unto thee. Thou didst hear our voice, and thou didst deliver our soul from the sword, and thou didst show us thy grace. Thou didst give unto us thy salvation. Thou didst rejoice our hearts with strength. Thou didst go forth for our salvation with thy arms. Thou didst redeem thy people. Thou didst answer us from the heavens of thy holiness. Thou didst save us from tens of thousands of people. The sun and the moon stood still in heaven, and thou didst stand in thy wrath against our oppressors, and didst command thy judgments over them. And the princes of the earth stood up, and the kings of the armies and nations had gathered themselves together. They that were not moved at the presence, they desired thy battle. Thou didst rise against them in anger, and didst bring down thy wrath upon them, and thou didst destroy them in thine anger, and cut them off in thy heart. Nations have been counseled with thy fury. Kingdoms have declined because of thy wrath. Thou didst wound kings in the day of thine anger. Thou didst pour out thy fury upon thee. Thy wrathful anger took hold of them. Thou didst turn their iniquity upon them, and thou didst cut off in their wickedness. They did spread a trap. They fled therein. In the net they hid. Their foot was caught. Thine hand was ready for all thine enemies, who said, through thy sword thou possessest the land, and through thy arm thou dwellest in the city. And thou didst fear their faces with shame, and didst bring uh, their horns down to the ground. Thou didst terrify them in thy wrath, and didst destroy them in thine anger. The earth trembled and shook at the sound of thy storm over them. Thou didst not withhold their souls from death, and didst bring down their lives to the grave. Okay? Thou didst pursue them in the storm, and thou didst consume them in the whirlwind. Thou didst turn uh, their rain into hell, and they fell in deep pits, so that they could not rise. Okay, no. So over here to 50. Isaiah 89 and 50. And the Lord had commanded Moses, so did Joshua and all Israel. They failed not in anything. So Joshua and all the children of Israel smote the whole land of Canaan as the Lord had commanded them, and smote all their kings, being 30 and one kings. And the children of Israel took their whole country, besides the kingdom of Shihon and Og, which are on the other side of Jordan, of which Moses had smitten many cities, and Moses gave them to the Rechabites and to the Gibeonites and to the half tribe of Manasseh. And Joshua smote all the kings that were on this side of Jordan to the west, and gave them for an inheritance to the 9 tribes and to the half tribe of Israel. For 5 years did Joshua carry on the war with these kings, and he gave them cities and Israel and cities to the Israelites, and the land became tranquil from battle throughout the cities of the Amorites and the Canaanites. Okay, so to make it plain, we noticed when the 12 spies went there, there was giants all over the place. That's what these kings are. If you go back to Cain's descendants before the flood, we see that the Aziel which was the main culprit, showed them how to fashion metal and how to, mess with the metal, the rubies and the diamonds and all that. So they would fashion these elaborate crowns, and these giants is wearing them on their head. That's what they talk about, kings. And like I was saying before, that's what the Adam and Mahel, those 9 men before the flood, that they was teaching, they was doling out information that they was receiving from the Most High to these giants. Like I said before, that's who Melchizedek is. It's a title that Adam had it, then it passed on to Seth, and it passed on, and Noah had it on the boat, and then Noah passed away, it was passed to Shem. But the thing to be understood is that these giants all over the land of Canaan. So when they say kings, these giants, it says it was 31 of them right here, 51. So Joshua and all the children of Israel smote the whole land of Canaan, giants there, as the Lord had commanded them, and smote all the kings, these giants, being 31 kings. And the children of Israel took their whole country. See that? So, like I was saying before, we know what these giants are doing. They was going up in these high places, making child sacrifices, spilling human blood. And so they did that for a long time, but understand that the dwelling place, the land of Canaan, belongs to the Lord of hosts. So you can only come there, but for so long, being defiled and unclean, he's gonna run you out. So right here we see their time that came up, and he ran them out. Then later on, he ran the Israelites out because they came to defile the land. Matter of fact, they picked up the same practices that these Canaanites are doing. And notice I said that they were sacrificing their children, human sacrifices. And that's what we're dealing with right now. We're worshiping, and we made a God out of a man that was sacrificed. And they ain't how the Most High work. And then not only that, the bloody sacrifice, human blood, don't add up. Okay? So, anybody got any comments so far about anything they were heard? Okay? Everybody good? Okay, I'm going to read chapter 91. It's about 10 verses. It says, and at that time, after the death of Joshua, the children of Canaan were still in the land, and the Israelites resolved to drive them out. So right here, the problem is right here, because they were told to drive all of them out when they went there. Because if they don't drive them out, they're going to end up picking up their characteristics and their ways. So it says, at that time, after the death of Joshua, the children of the Canaanites were still in the land, and the Israelites resolved to drive them out. And the children of Israel asked of the Lord, saying, who shall first go up for us to the Canaanites to fight against them? And the Lord said, Judah shall go up, right? And the children of Judah said to Simeon, go up with us unto our lot, and we will fight against the Canaanites, and we likewise will go over with you to your lot. So the children of Simeon went with children of Judah, and the children of Judah went and fought against the Canaanites. So the Lord delivered the Canaanites into the hands of the children of Judah, and they smote them in Bezek, 10,000 men, and they fought with Adonmelech in Bezek, and he fled from before them, and they pursued him and caught him, and they took hold of him and cut off his thumbs and great toes, and Adonibezek, I can't say that name, said, 70 kings having their thumbs and great toes cut off, gather their meat under my table, as I have done, so God has acquitted me. And they brought him to Jerusalem, and he died there. And the children of Simeon went with the children of Judah, and they smote the Canaanites with the edge of the sword. And the Lord was with the children of Judah, and they possessed the mountains. And the children of Joseph went up to Bethel, the same as Luz, and the Lord was with them. And the children of Joseph spied out Bethel, and the watchmen saw a man going forth from the city, and they caught him and said unto him, Show us now the entrance to the city, and we will show kindness unto thee. And that man showed them the entrance of the city, and the children of Joseph came and smote the city with the edge of a sword, and the men with his and the man with his family they sent away, and he went to the Hittites, and he built the city, and he called the name of the city thereof Luz. So as all Israelites dwelt in their cities, and the children of Israel dwelt in their cities, and the children served the Lord all the days of Joshua, and all the days of the elders who had lengthened their days after Joshua, and saw the great work of the Lord, which he had performed for Israel. And the elders judged Israel after the death of Joshua for 17 years. And elders also fought the battles of Israel against the Canaanites, and the Lord drove the Canaanites from before the children of Israel in order to place the Israelites in their land. And he accomplished all the words which he had spoken to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and the oath which he had sworn to give to them and to their children the land of Canaan. And the Lord gave the children of Israel the whole land of Canaan, as he had sworn to their ancestors. And the Lord gave them rest from those round about them. And the children of Israel dwelt securely in their cities. Blessed be the Lord forever. Amen and amen. Strengthen yourselves and make the hearts of all of you that trust in the Lord be of good courage. Okay. Any comments? Okay, I want to shine a light on something. Keep on trying to, make it plain. So it says in verse 14 in chapter 91 that he says, and he accomplished all the words which he had spoken to Abraham. Okay, right here. At this time in history, he says, he accomplished all the words which he had spoken to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and the oath which he had sworn to give them and to give them and to their children the land of Canaan. So when you see that right there, verse chapter 15 included in there. It says right here, and he accomplished all the words which he had spoken to Abraham. He spoke to Abraham in chapter 15. So whatever he told Abraham in chapter 15, it's been accomplished at this point right here. Okay? No comments. Everybody good?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I hope you got something out of that. I'm gonna okay. Hold on. I got a little something I want to play right here before I close out. Okay. Tripping. There you go.
We pledge allegiance to your flag, United States of America, and to your republic, for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for who? For you, for some, not for us, not for our people. So please stop saying we equal to a flag of red, white, and blue. In one hand you beat us, until we're black and blue with the other beat us, until we're none beat us, until we can't walk straight. Then you put us in chains if we lucky. But for the ones of us who are so lucky, you tell us to put our hands up as some type of sick tribute to your privilege, and then you pull the trigger into our bodies, lay down on your ground, pull the trigger until your clip is empty, pull the trigger until we make your evening news, and then when our children cry, we have to look our children in the eyes and tell them that they have to be cautious. That when they walk your streets, they have to be so in fear that they have to spend an entirety of their life looking over their shoulder, because you will hunt them down. You will bury them, either in a prison system that aims to disenfranchise them or the dirt beneath their feet. And this is all because of that same racism that you love to say no longer exists, but we all know that same racism is the reason that when we want to put a hood on, we resist. The reason that when we go to get these jobs, we're dismissed at the door. The reason that when we go to shop, we're watched in your stores. That racism is the reason that us saying your Pledge of Allegiance feels a lot like a root canal, or a whip's impact against our flesh, or a baton to our head, or a bullet in our back, or tear gas at a Black Lives Matter protest. That racism is the reason that 3 women clenched their purses as I walked through the entrance of this very building. It hurts that I have to remember that the system I was born into was built to work against me. Hurts that I have to remember. Hurts that I have to remember. Hurts that I have to. Hurts that I actually have to remember that you will happily invest more money into the preservation of wildlife than you ever will into the preservation of Black life. Let me ask y'all a question. When y'all turn on your TVs and witness another black body laid on your concrete, what do y'all see? Another murder? Another sad story? Another funeral? Do you see the aftermath? I see another child that lost their father, another single woman trying to raise a man, another broken home, which leads to another child that grows up and suffers the same fate as their father, which means another black woman that outlives her adolescent son. This country practices a culture that lacks equal rights for blacks, and we love to say that black don't crack. Meanwhile, y'all shatter our melanin like glass. My back breaks for everybody you lay at our feet. For every memory I try to erase within your war zone. Late nights rebuilding my PTSD has found its way to the surface. And my hate for this country reminds me that I'm far from patriotic, so it's a little ironic that I pledge allegiance to your flag of the United States of America and to your republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for who?
Okay, I want to say shalom. I'll see everybody tomorrow for Ask Brother Leonard. Let's say shalom.
Shalom.
Okay.